All right, really excited about this interview. I've wanted to have Katie Norris, former Sooner, on for a while, but I wanted to wait until Bedlam week to talk to her because I think that she has a unique story, which we'll get into. But first, Katie, how's life been? Get us caught up on what's going on in your life these days.
Yeah, life's great. I somehow found myself back in Stillwater, you know? It's weird how these things happen. I was in Norman for about almost 10 years. I ended up getting my master's at OU in health promotion after I did my undergrad, and I'm working for OSU as a public health grant specialist. And, life takes you in many different directions.
Yeah.
That's where I've currently settled. But yeah, I like being back home. I miss Norman, but I don't miss the traffic. But I can still get down there whenever I want to, but not much else. I have a dog named Bodie that I got during the pandemic, and that's really
Nice.
all I got going,
Well, you grew up in Stillwater, and you grew up
Mhm.
an Oklahoma State football fan. You grew up an Oklahoma State basketball fan, but it didn't sound like you necessarily had a favorite softball team growing up. And I still know your family and a lot of your friends are still big Oklahoma State fans as well. But take me through that recruiting process because it wasn't just OU and OSU. I believe Baylor was in there as well.
Mhm.
What kind of led you to eventually picking OU being from Stillwater?
Right. So I remember sitting down with my parents before I, started my recruiting journey, and we laid it out and we are like, okay, where are you willing to go? Like how far? Like kind of was the like geographically. And I was like, well, I don't want to have to get on a plane to come home. So it really, laid out the Big 12 as options. I think Baylor was one of my first visits that I took some unofficial visits, but Baylor, I think, was one of my first like big visits. And I loved Coach Moore, like the coaching staff. I took my visit to OSU, and I was like hesitant to take my Norman visit. I'd been to camp in Norman a few times for the OU, summer softball camp. So like I was familiar. I'd been to the World Series and I'd followed them obviously forever and been, I idolized many of those athletes. But my visit to Norman I took, and I mean, Coach Lombardi was really who kind of sold it for me. Like she took me on my campus tour. I remember standing in like a library stairwell and just talking to her about the program and like the family they had in Norman with the OU softball team. And I went home and I thought about it for probably a day, like I sat down with my parents and we talked about it. And I remember I was in my, childhood bedroom and I called Coach Gasso and I told her I was ready to commit.
Wow.
And it was pretty wild. I decided to announce to the town of Stillwater pretty much. I was in the homecoming basketball court. And I thought that, when they ask you your bio, like Katie loves, sports and is in the beta club and she'll be attending the University of Oklahoma to play softball. And it was kind of like silence.
No, really?
Yeah,
It got
like
awkward?
I hadn't, I mean, people knew, but I hadn't like really announced it to the masses. And I don't know why I chose to do it in the middle of the basketball homecoming court. I didn't win. And so I'd imagine that that's probably part of the reason.
Well, you were probably voted the winner, and then they changed it at the last
I'm
second after you
sure
announced that, you know?
that is mine. They tell me we split the vote, and I think that
Yeah.
someone's lying. The
Yeah.
baseball coach, Gary Gardner, was the one announcing it. I'm like, you couldn't throw me a bone,
Right.
You could have just said Katie. No one knows the real results.
Well, you go to OU, and
Mhm,
then it had to be interesting the first time coming back to
mhm.
Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. And I can't remember if it was the first game against OSU in Stillwater. I know it was that series. You hit a big grand slam,
I
right? So
did.
how was that feeling going back, playing OSU? You rooted for them growing up, and then coming back and hitting a grand slam in front of, I'm sure, your entire friends and family.
Oh yeah. I think my first at bat, I think I maybe had an RBI single. And then I also can't remember. I mean, time is a weird construct, especially when you're get removed from it for so long. But I think it was maybe game one. And yeah, the bases were loaded. And, luckily the fences in Stillwater slope downhill.
Yeah.
because it was kind of like a line drive that kind of scooted over. But I remember feeling more than anything relief. Like I didn't come out here and strike out 4 times, and everyone's like, well, that's glad we didn't get her, you know?
Yeah.
But I think I cried. I mean, I 100% cried in the dugout. I remember looking at my athletic trainer, Jace, and just like tears streaming. I mean, you're 18 and the town, like I had so many people in my corner in Stillwater that, you know, still are and were back then, but there were plenty of people that wanted me to fail at everything once I got to Norman. You know, my dad owned the biggest spirit shop in town that sold OSU clothes, you know, like people were threatening, like, we're never going to shop at Chris's again. And like my dad showed up to the game and in every polo he had OU, but he embroidered softball below it, you know, just so we don't get confused. He's like, I support the softball team. I'm not supporting. But yeah, I mean, all my friends were there. I remember like coaches from high school, like came, like basketball, like just like, it was great. There were a few like instances of like, ugh, like some fans weren't so kind, but that kind of goes with the territory. But for the most part, it was like an overwhelming like excitement and happiness, just like, and like I said, relief, like, oh, okay, these next 4 years, I think will be all right, you know?
And they were more than all right. They were awesome. I am curious what a week like this is for you, because this is going to decide the Big 12 race. And I think last year was the same instance as well.
Oh yeah.
So when it comes to Bedlam softball, when it comes to Bedlam football, Bedlam basketball, you still have your loyalties outside softball. But what's this week like for you when you're still surrounded today by such an OSU contingency? Do you get razzed quite a bit, or how is that?
I mean, I get like people poke, you know, and I just let it roll off my back at this point. Like it doesn't bother me, but I mean, I'm excited. I kind of like when it comes down to the wire a little bit, you know, like last season and OSU won the first game, I think, of the series last year here. And luckily my parents my parents had season tickets when I was playing in Stillwater so that they could sit. Their seats are the first 2 seats right by the visitors dugout.
Wow.
And so we still feel a sense of like protectiveness. Like when Coach Gasso's down there, I'm like, don't come. I'm the line, you know, like I will hold my own against anyone who wants to screw with them. But I mean, I'm excited. I hope they're really good games. Like that's watching OU all season, you know, like it's fun to beat people by, you know, 10 every game, but eventually you're like, I like a little competition.
Sure.
And so
I'm really excited. These games tend to get a little chippy at times, but I do think that this is a unique rivalry in the grand scheme of college sports. For instance, I think you and I are right around the same age. So let's use Bedlam football as an example.
Yeah.
OU fans hated Les Miles during the early 2000s. OSU fans, I'm sure, couldn't stand Bob Stoops when he was coaching here. So this is a highly competitive, it can be a chippy rivalry on the field. And maybe I'm totally off base on this, but I feel like when it comes to the Bedlam softball rivalry, I know OU fans really respect Kenny Gajewski. And I'm going to guess that OSU fans really respect Patty Gasso. Do you kind of feel that? Like there is a rivalry, but there's a different feel to where each side can say, yeah, but I kind of respect what they do over there.
Oh, 100%. Like I think that they've just both done it so right. You know, like Coach Gajewski hasn't given you a reason to hate him or his team. And because they play the game, you know, in a respectful way. And same with Coach Gasso. I mean, her team's like, people last year were getting upset about like the excitement they were having for, you know, hitting a home run or double. I'm like, okay, well, what do you expect of them? Like they're 20-year-old girls and they're in the World Series. Like it's absurd, but I think that there is a mutual respect amongst the programs. And I think that there was that lull for a while where OU was just kind of like the team, you know, like everyone else was like kind of in the down here. And then OU was just like beating everyone. And so when Coach Gajewski rebuilt that program and brought it back up to, you know, a top 10 level team, like how can you not respect both? And I think it's mutual. I mean, I think that there's a little bit of like hatred, but that's not real amongst fans.
Sure.
Like they want to not like someone, I think, is the fans' MO. Like they can't stand it. They have to have some feeling of like disdain, but you can't hate a great team that plays the game well,
Sure.
And so I think both sides are happy that I'm sure that they're just competitive and they're the best, especially in the conference. And it makes it fun. I mean, I wish we'd bring back the like one game in the season, like during season at Hall of Fame. I think that was
you'd sell it out even with the additional seating that's there. You probably sell that out,
or even do the whole. I don't know. I'm not in charge of scheduling, obviously, but I think doing the series at Hall of Fame on neutral ground. I mean, we do it like 2-1 or 1-2. In the past couple of years, have gotten screwy because of, I think, weather in the year prior messed things up. But it's going to be exciting to watch.
You have my vote for that. I've heard some incredible stories doing the podcast this year. Mm-hmm. Destiny Martinez was baptized in Patty Gasso's pool in her backyard. Right. Yeah. Jessica Schultz told me a story 2 weeks ago where Patty was writing her poems while she was recruiting her in California. I mean, it's amazing. If you had to pick just one, and I know it's probably difficult to do that, what was your favorite thing about Patty Gasso during your 4 years at OU?
I'm not sure I have like a specific instance that, at least not top of mind, but I just felt like the entire time I was there, like she was always on my side. You know what I mean? Like I had some ups and downs for sure. And I know we have the big mental health talk that's, a hot topic right now. And I had a really successful freshman year. And that makes a sophomore year really hard. And so, I mean, she never gave up on me ever. And I mean, I wanted to give up on myself a few times just because it was hard. And I just wasn't producing like I had previously. But I mean, she just is the best and she cares about you. And I remember, actually, I am thinking about one story. It's not really like deep in any way, but we were playing at Texas. I think it was my junior year. It's when Schultz was out with colitis. And I had somehow found myself catching again after, 4 years ago.
And you were catching Kalani at that time, right? You hadn't caught since high school, and you come in and you got to catch probably the best pitcher in the game, correct?
Yeah, and I didn't really catch Lonnie at practice either because I caught Michelle most of the time. And I remember the umpire behind the plate being like, "You're not getting the signs in fast enough. Like, you have to hurry." And I turned around and I was like, "I haven't done this in a very long time. I need you to give me a break." And I was like, "Do you see it's Kaylani? Like, I can't. Like, I'm just doing the best I can do." But I just kept swinging at every drop ball. I think it was Blair Luna was pitching. And if it was in the ground, I wanted to hit it. Like, there was no logic. And she told me, she pulled me, like, during my bat, she's like, "Katie, you can't stay in the lineup if you just keep swinging at these balls." And I was like, "Okay." And then I think she, like, I didn't swing and she threw me a rise ball and I hit it out. And I was like, wow, she really knows what she's doing. Just a little push is really all it takes. And, I give a lot of credit to her for most of, the adult behaviors I've, enacted. Because I was a naive young gal when I went to Norman. I was the youngest in my class. So I was like, I rolled into campus at 17. And so I had a lot of growing up to do. And she definitely helped me do that. So,
yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up that series at Texas because I want to say the same year, you go to the Women's College World Series, and it just kind of brings everything full circle, I guess, a little bit, because you had an interesting experience of first, right? Your first trip back to Stillwater, we talked about that. And then you grow up going to the Women's College World Series. You said earlier that you idolized the softball players that you were watching. And then what was it? Your first at-bat against Arizona State, you hit a home run. I can't imagine the moment you had in that moment rounding the bases. What was it like to grow up idolizing that, playing in it, and then one of your first at-bats hitting a home run? That's incredible to me.
Oh, for sure. I think there's such a luxury to growing up in Oklahoma and being able to go to the World Series, year after year. And like you step on the field and the national anthem plays and you just get goosebumps, and in those championship series, the parachuters are flying in and the flyover happens. And it's like just these incredible moments that you see on TV and in any, like pick a sport, and yeah, I mean that at bat, I just like, I did an interview after and I can't believe I said it, but I was like, yeah, she just laid it up there and I just, did it. I just like couldn't, it just felt that easy. And I don't know why it did in that one instance, but I think it's just because like you're overcome with these, feelings and you're like, you're kind of out of body when you're playing, it's, yeah, I'm feeling like a little nostalgic just thinking
Well, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, just to grow up wanting to play there and you do, and then you hit a home run. I think Arizona State, that year was the top seed when you beat them in the first game? Is that correct?
Would we have been an 8? I don't know.
Maybe Dallas Escobedo was she the pitcher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who was really good for Arizona State at the time. And I guess we're expecting, or at least hoping, that OU is going to get back to the Women's College World Series. I mean, this year has been incredible. I mean, the stats are just crazy. What's just kind of been your overall impressions with the team from what they have in the circle to what they're doing up and down the lineup, game in and game out?
I mean, it's just incredible. Like, talk about balance. Like, to have like the top home run hitting team, and then to have a freshman pitcher that's on the mound that's just like dealing. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember watching Jordy Ball the first game, and I was like, did she transfer? Like, did I read that right? Like, no, I was like, surely she's a transfer from somewhere, because like the way she's approaches the batter and her presence on the mound is like. I didn't look like that when I was 18. I was like nervous, and she's just like, bam, And so, I mean, go into every game assuming they're going to run rule someone, which is like wild, and that they're not going to score any runs either, And so I think it's going to take some special teams to beat them, or in some lucky circumstance. Luck, I think, is going to come into play for sure, but we'll see. I mean, anything can happen,
Yeah. Well, anything did happen last year when James Madison wins in the first round. I mean, you're exactly right about that. What I want to know is this, because it's turned into one of my favorite things about the Women's College World Series, and I know all OU fans feel this too, is the crowd shots from where, especially your era, all your old teammates like show up and everyone's going crazy. Will you be in that mob this year in Oklahoma City? For sure. Like, especially now, I do have a conference that I have to go to for work that is really cramping my vibe. To be honest, it ends on the 4th. So I'll be a later addition to the mob, but I will definitely be there. We still have my parents still have World Series tickets. So I'll be there regardless. Where I will be standing depends, but I will be definitely in the stands in my crimson, I assume. Yeah. It will be. I mean, if we aren't there, it will be the most shocking sports moment ever. Yeah. Everyone's so excited about this new stadium. Everyone's so excited about Love's Field, and rightfully so. It's going to be one of the best facilities in the sport. But, I guess I'm wondering too, like, so many championships have been won when Marita Hines Field has been, the home field. There's been so many great memories. And I mean, maybe some of the most impactful years of your life happened during when you're at OU. So is it a bittersweet feeling to see this great facility come, but also Marita Hines Field maybe go away that's had so many special memories for you? Oh, absolutely. And I even played there in high school. We were playing tournaments there. And so, I mean, it's going to be, like a little pang of it, but I can't wait to see it's going to be incredible. I can't wait. It's going to be so awesome. I mean, hopefully Marita Hines is still, there. I hope they don't bulldoze it, and make it into parking, or something. But I mean, I just think it shows like they moved from we all started at Reeves Park, and then they moved to Marita Hines, and, now it's just the progression of, success, which is exciting. And Coach Gasso has been there for all of it, which is really incredible. Mm. Well, you mentioned mental health a few minutes ago, and I'm glad you did, because it is the story in the sports right now. And it's good that there's some awareness right now. So I guess I don't know what your experiences were playing college softball, but what do you think we can do to, maybe address this in a better manner moving forward?
I think this goes way past softball and goes really into just, well-being of anyone. But I mean, normalizing help, normalizing therapy, normalizing asking for help. As athletes, we're tough. That's our MO. Like, I don't hurt. Like, you go to the doctor and they're like, what's your pain tolerance? Or you're from 1 to 10, what do you feel? And you're like, well, it's a 2 compared to, that time I, shredded my shoulder doing, like it's skewed. But I think the biggest thing is just normalizing getting help and taking a break. I think we've seen athletes, take a step back during season, and it's, for their best, health. And I think if we start to normalize it and make it easier and not as taboo of a topic to talk about. I know OU has great psychological resources because that's what I used in college. And I just would hope that people realize how accessible it is and take advantage, because especially after the pandemic, I mean, we could all use a little help,
Sure.
And I can't imagine the pressure of being an athlete during that time either.
Yeah.
It's hard enough. And then you add, the world crumbling on top of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we definitely need to talk more about. But I have confidence in all the coaches out there, but especially Patty Gasso, and she had a statement that was great and right on. Hey, last question I have for you, and I dug this one up. So I found a Q&A with you from 2009. So this was early on in your career.
Me forever.
Do you still want to be a Shamu trainer at SeaWorld? Are you ready to recognize that dream at this point in your life?
Okay, so here's the thing. The other day was have you seen Free Willy?
Of course, yes.
Okay. Yes. When he's training Willie and he's like turning and like Willie's turning with him.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get my dog to do that. Okay. So we were training the other day to try and do this, but since I have seen Blackfish, which really just crushed my soul. And so I think I have retired my dreams of being a Shamu trainer. But man, I watched Free Willy till the tape broke. The VHS tape broke. And, I went to SeaWorld so many times and I just loved it. But yeah, I think I've realized that maybe like animals like that in captivity is not the best. And Blackfish really opened my eyes to maybe but as a kid, you don't know that.
Yeah. Hey, that's the definition of a 90s kid, wearing out the VHS version of Free Willy. That's as 90s kid as it gets right there.
I'm sure I was wearing like a really tacky t-shirt, with like neon colors splattered on it and like a bike short, while I was watching it in true theme. God, I want that article to go away. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I dug that one up and I said, oh yeah, I 100% have to mention that. There's some good stuff in there. There's some good stuff. If you want to Google the Katie Norris 2009 Q&A on Soonersports.com. Katie, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in your career field, and it sounds like we will see you in Oklahoma City coming up in a few short weeks.
Yep, I will be there. Thank you, Tyler.
Yep. That was perfect, Katie. Thank you so much.